The spirits paused, their swearing forms slowing as they considered her words. Silence fell over the clearing, suffocating Ifeoma and Adebayo as the spirits conferred among themselves. Finally, one of the spirits stepped forward, a tall, slender figure with glowing eyes and a shifting, ever-changing face. "Very well," the spirit said, its voice softer but no less dangerous.
"If you wish to challenge the curse, you must prove yourself worthy. We'll give you a chance, Ifeoma. But know this, the price of failure will be your soul. If you cannot break the curse, you belong to us forever bound to the spirit world."
Fear knotted in Ifeoma's stomach, but she held her ground. "What must I do?" she asked, her voice steady despite the dread within her.
"You must face 3 trials,"
the spirit said.
"Strength, wisdom, and sacrifice. If you succeed, the curse will be broken, and you'll be free. But if you fail..."
"I won't fail," Ifeoma interrupted, her voice firm. She couldn't afford to fail. "Tell me what I have to do."
"The first trial,"
the spirit said,
"is a test of strength. You must defeat the guardian of this forest, a creature born of ancient magic. It will show no mercy."
Before Ifeoma could respond, the ground began to shake, and a massive creature emerged from the shadows. Adebayo instinctively stepped in front of Ifeoma, but she stopped him. "No," she said softly. "This is my trial." She felt the curse's power flowing through her, a mix of strength and fear. As the beast lunged at her, Ifeoma dodged swiftly, her movements sharpened by the curse. She gathered her magic and focused it on the creature, willing it to submit to her will. For a moment, the beast hesitated, but then it roared and charged again. Ifeoma stood her ground, meeting its attack with a surge of energy. The impact sent a shock wave through the clearing, but she didn't waver. She pushed back with everything she had, and finally, the beast collapsed, dissolving into the earth. The spirits watched in silence, and after a long pause, the lead spirit spoke.
"You have passed the first trial, but the next will test your wisdom. Are you prepared?"
Ifeoma nodded, though uncertainty gnawed at her. She had fought the beast, but this next trial would be one of the minds. The clearing around her disappeared, replaced by a vast maze of tall hedges and twisting paths. Ifeoma found herself standing at the entrance, Adebayo beside her.
"This is your second trial,"
the spirit's voice echoed.
"You must find your way through the maze, but beware, the paths are filled with illusions designed to deceive you."
Ifeoma glanced at Adebayo, her heart racing. "Stay close to me," she said. They stepped into the maze, and almost immediately, Ifeoma felt disoriented. Every turn looked the same, and the air grew thick with an oppressive silence. As they reached a fork in the path, Ifeoma closed her eyes, trying to clear her mind. "We need to listen," she said softly, "not just with our ears, but with our hearts. The right path will feel different." She opened her eyes and sensed a subtle warmth from one path. "This way," she said, leading Adebayo down the corridor. They continued encountering more folks, but Ifeoma trusted her instincts. Slowly but surely, they reached the center of the maze, where a stone pedestal stood, a carved box resting on top. The air around it pulsed with energy, and Ifeoma could feel its power. "This is it," Adebayo whispered. "But what do we do now?" Ifeoma took a step forward, but something felt off. "This feels too easy," she said, eyeing the box with suspicion. "Do you think it's a trap?" Adebayo asked. "Maybe," Ifeoma replied. "The spirits are trying to trick us." She realized the box wasn't the answer. It was a test of her resolve. They needed to resist the temptation to take the easy way out. "I don't think we should open it," she said. "It's a trap." Adebayo nodded in agreement, and they turned away from the pedestal. As soon as they left the clearing, the maze dissolved into mist, and the spirits appeared once more.
"You have passed the second trial,"
the lead spirit said, its voice filled with dark amusement. "But the final trial will be the most difficult of all." Ifeoma stood tall, though her heart pounded in her chest. "What is the final trial?" she asked. The lead spirit's eyes gleamed in the darkness. "The final trial is one of sacrifice.
You must choose between your own life and the life of the one you love.
Ifoma's heart skipped a beat, and she felt Adebayo's grip tighten on her hand. She turned to look at him, her eyes wide with fear and disbelief. "What do you mean?" she demanded, her voice trembling. "What kind of choice is that?" The spirit's laughter filled the air, cold and cruel.
It is the ultimate test, it said. To break the curse, you must be willing to sacrifice everything. We demand a life, and you must decide whose it will be, yours or his.
Only one of you can leave this place alive.
Tears welled up in her eyes as she looked at Adebayo, who was staring at her with a mixture of shock and sadness. "Ifoma," he whispered, his voice raw with emotion. "Don't do this. Don't let them win. There has to be another way." But Ifoma knew the spirits weren't bluffing. They had brought her here for this final test, and there was no escaping it. The curse demanded a life, and if she refused to choose, they would both be taken. She turned back to the spirit, her hand clenched into fist. "Why?" she demanded, her voice shaking with anger. "Why must it come to this? Haven't I suffered enough? Haven't I proven myself?" How could she sacrifice the man she loved to save herself? But how could she let herself die, leaving him alone to face the world without her? Adebayo stepped forward, his eyes filled with determination. "Ifoma," he said quietly, his voice steady, despite the fear she could see lurking behind his eyes. "You don't have to do this. I'll choose for you. I'll give myself up and you'll be free. You've suffered long enough." Ifoma shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "No, Adebayo, I can't let you do that. I love you too much to lose you. I can't let you die for me." He took her hands in his grip warm and reassuring. "And I can't let you die for me either. But if this is the only way to break the curse, then I'll do it. I'll sacrifice myself so that you can live." Ifoma's heart ached with the weight of his words. She had never imagined that love could be so painful, so cruel. She had always thought that love would protect her, shield her from the darkness that had haunted her for so long. But now, she was faced with the terrible truth. Love wasn't enough to save them both. She closed her eyes, her mind racing. There had to be another way. There had to be some way to outsmart the spirits, to break the curse without losing either of their lives. But no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't see a way out. The spirits were ancient and powerful, bound by rules that she didn't fully understand. She couldn't cheat them. She couldn't escape their demands. She turned to face the spirits once more, her back straight, her voice steady. "You want a life?" she called out into the darkness, her words echoing through, declaring, "Then take mine. But in return, you must free Adebayo and every soul you have claimed. Let me join you, and the curse will end with me." The spirits paused, their forms swirling in the shadows. Finally, the lead spirit stepped forward, its face shifting into the form of Ifoma's ancestors. Tears welled up in Adebayo's eyes as he shook his head, his voice breaking. "No, Ifoma, you can't. I can't lose you. There has to be another way. We can fight them together. We can find a way to break the curse without losing you." Ifoma reached out and cupped his face in her hands, her touch gentle but firm. "This is my choice," she said softly. "I won't let the curse take any more lives. I love you, Adebayo, and that's why I'm doing this. I'm saving you. I'm saving all of us." Adebayo's shoulders shook with silent sobs as he pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly as if he could keep her from slipping away. "I love you too, Ifoma," he whispered, his voice thick with grief. "I love you more than anything, but I can't let you go. Please don't do this." Ifoma's heart ached, but she knew what had to be done. She gently pulled away from him, her fingers lingering on his cheek for a moment before she stepped back. "Goodbye, Adebayo," she said, her voice filled with quiet resolve. "Live well, be happy, that's all I want for you." Before Adebayo could say another word, Ifoma turned and walked towards the spirits, her steps steady and unflinching. As she reached the center of the clearing, the spirits surrounded her, their forms shifting and swirling like a storm of shadows. The air cracked with energy as they prepared to take her into the spirit world. But just as the spirits began to close in on her, something unexpected happened. The ground beneath Ifoma's feet trembled. A blinding light erupted from the center of the clearing, cutting through the darkness. The spirits recoiled in shock, their forms flickering and dissolving as the light grew brighter and brighter. Ifoma stumbled back, shielding her eyes from the intense glow, and then, from the heart of the light, a figure emerged. It was a woman, tall, regal, and glowing with an otherworldly radiance. Her face was both familiar and strange, as if it belonged to someone Ifoma had known all her life, but had never truly seen. The woman's eyes were filled with kindness and sorrow, and as she stepped forward, the spirits retreated, their power fading in the presence of her light. Ifoma, the woman said, her voice soft and soothing, "You have done well. You have faced the trials with courage and wisdom. But there is one more truth you must know." Ifoma stared at the woman in awe, her heart pounding in her chest. "Who are you?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. The woman smiled, a sad knowing smile. "I am your ancestor," she said, "the one who made the pact with the spirits all those years ago. I am the one who bound our bloodline to this curse." Ifoma's breath caught in her throat. You did this? You are the reason for all this suffering." The woman's smile faded, and she nodded slowly. "Yes, I sought power and beauty, and in my greed, I made a deal with the spirits. But I did not understand the full cost of that deal until it was too late. The curse has bound me to the spirit world ever since, and it has haunted our family for generations. But you have done what I could not. You have broken the cycle." Ifoma shook her head, confusion and anger swelling inside her. "But I didn't break the curse. I was going to sacrifice myself." The woman reached out and gently touched Ifoma's cheek, her touch as light as a breeze. "You did not need to sacrifice yourself to break the curse," she said softly. "The curse was never about sacrifice. It was about power that I sought, and power that the spirits craved. But you, Ifoma, have shown them that true power lies in love and selflessness. You offered them your life, not out of greed or fear, but out of love. And that is what broke the curse." Ifoma stared at her ancestor, her mind reeling with the implications of her words. "The curse was broken? The spirit had been defeated not by blood or sacrifice, but by love?" The woman nodded, as if reading her thoughts. "Yes, Ifoma, the curse is broken. The spirits no longer have power over you or anyone else. You are free." Tears filled Ifoma's eyes as the weight of her ancestors' words sank in. She was free. The curse that had haunted her family for generations was finally gone, and she hadn't had to sacrifice herself or Adebayo to do it. But even as relief washed over her, a new question surfaced in her mind. "What happens now?" she asked, her voice trembling. "What happens to you?" The woman smiled again, a bittersweet smile. "I will finally be at peace," she said. "The curse bound me to the spirit world, but now that it is broken, I can move on, and so can you, Ifoma. You can live the life you were meant to live." Ifoma's heart swelled with gratitude and sorrow as she looked at the woman who had set all of this in motion. Despite the pain and suffering her ancestors' actions had caused, Ifoma couldn't help but feel a deep sense of compassion for her. She had been lost, just as Ifoma had been lost, but now they were both free. "Thank you." Ifoma's voice trembled as she whispered her gratitude to her ancestor. The ethereal woman, glowing softly, nodded in return, her expression peaceful and relieved. The spirits that had once tormented Ifoma and her lineage began to dissipate, their forms breaking apart like mist under the warmth of the rising sun. The oppressive energy that had filled the clearing was gone, replaced by an overwhelming sense of calm and finality. As the last traces of the spirits vanished, Ifoma's ancestor began to fade as well. The light that surrounded her grew softer, dimmer, and soon she was nothing more than a faint glow in the air. But before she disappeared completely, she looked at Ifoma one last time, her eyes filled with pride. Live well, Ifoma, she said softly. You have earned it. You have freed us all. And with that, she was gone. The clearing was silent. The air was still, save for the gentle rustling of leaves in the breeze. Ifoma stood in the center of it all, feeling the weight of everything that had happened slowly lift from her shoulders. She was free. The curse was broken, and the spirits that had haunted her family were no more. A soft touch on her arm brought her back to the present. She turned to find Adebayo standing beside her, his eyes filled with a mixture of wonder and relief. He reached out, pulling her into a tight embrace, his arms wrapping around her as if he had never wanted to let her go. You did it, he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. You really did it, Ifoma. The curse is broken. Ifoma buried her face in his chest, letting out a long shuddering breath. She allowed herself to truly believe it for the first time in what felt like forever. The nightmare was over. She could finally breathe, finally live without the constant fear that had followed her for so long. I couldn't have done it without you, she murmured against his chest. You were there for me every step of the way. You never gave up on me, even when I was ready to give up on myself. Adebayo pressed a kiss to the top of her head, holding her even tighter. I love you, Ifoma, he said softly. I will never stop fighting for you. We are free now. We can finally have the life we've always wanted. Ifoma smiled a genuine smile that reached her eyes. For so long, she had believed that happiness was beyond her reach, that she was doomed to live a life of secrecy and sacrifice. But now, standing here with Adebayo, she realized that happiness was not only possible, but within her grasp, and she was ready to claim it. Months passed, and the story of Ifoma's triumph over the curse became a legend in the town of Ibadan. The whispers of her beauty, once tinged with fear and suspicion, were now filled with admiration and respect. The townspeople marveled at her courage and strength, and the mystery of the missing women was finally put to rest. No one knew the whole truth of what had happened in the forest that night, but they knew that Ifoma had faced something dark and powerful, and that she had emerged victorious. Life in Ibadan slowly returned to normal, but for Ifoma, nothing would ever be the same. She and Adebayo were inseparable, their love growing stronger with each passing day. They made plans for the future, plans that were no longer overshadowed by the looming threat of the curse. For the first time in her life, Ifoma could see a bright and promising future, a future that she was eager to embrace. One evening, as the sun set over the hills of Ibadan, Ifoma and Adebayo sat together outside their small home, watching the sky turn shades of orange and pink. The air was warm, and the sound of distant laughter from the marketplace drifted on the breeze. Ifoma leaned her head on Adebayo's shoulder, content and at peace. Do you ever think about it? Adebayo asked quietly, his voice breaking the comfortable silence between them. Ifoma knew what he meant. She had often thought about the night in the forest, about the trials she had faced and the choice she had made. Sometimes in the quiet moments, she would wonder what would have happened if things had gone differently. But each time, she reminded herself that she had made the right choice, the only choice that had set her free. Sometimes, she admitted, but not in the way I used to. It's more like a memory now, something that happened a long time ago. I don't feel its weight anymore. Adebayo nodded, his hand finding hers and squeezing gently. You are amazing, Ifoma. You broke the curse. You saved us all. I will never forget that. Ifoma smiled, turning to look at him. We saved each other, she said softly. I couldn't have done it without you, Adebayo. You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. That is what gave me the strength to face the spirits. He kissed her softly, his lips lingering on hers for a moment before pulling back. And now, we have the rest of our lives to look forward to. No more spirits, no more curses, just us. Ifoma's smile widened as she rested her head on his shoulder again, watching the last rays of the sun deep below the horizon. The darkness that had once filled her life was replaced by the light of a new beginning, a beginning that she would share with the man she loved. As the stars began to twinkle in the night sky, Ifoma closed her eyes, feeling a deep sense of peace. The curse was gone. The spirits were defeated. and she was finally free. This was her new beginning, a life filled with love, hope, and endless possibilities. The end. Thank you all so much for always watching my videos. I hope you like this one too. Please subscribe, like, leave a comment, and share it with your family and friends. Until next time, be safe and live life to the fullest. Bye.